Good morning. Thank you, candidates, for attending, and also our panel members. First off, though, I want to give a special thank you to Shelley Berkeley, who's running for Las Vegas mayor. She's one of our sponsors. Our other sponsor is Carrie Maxey. She's running for Family Court Department N. And then also another one of our sponsors is Monica Larson, and she's running for Henderson City Council Ward 2. So the way this process is going to work is you guys will get 45 seconds to introduce yourself, why you're running for this seat, and also why you are seeking the endorsement of Veterans in Politics International, as well as Nevada Veterans Association, and also the endorsement of Armed Forces Chamber PAC. With that, each panel member, when they ask you a question, will introduce ourselves and also our position. So at this time, we'll go ahead and start our endorsement interview for Clark County District Court Judge, Department 27. We'll start with you, and we'll work this way. You have 45 seconds. The way it'll work is give you, when you see the yellow, you got 15 seconds. When you see the red, that means I need you to wrap up. I won't be rude and interrupt you mid-sentence, but if you keep going on, you'll get this from me, and that means please wrap up as soon as possible. So
like the Court of Appeals, we're used to it. Good morning. I'm Alexandra Beth McLeod, and I'm one of the candidates running for Department 27 of the District Court. I have been in Las Vegas practicing law for over 2 decades. My experience is in civil litigation. I have tried several jury trials to juries here in Clark County and have experience in a bunch of different cases, including arguments before the Nevada Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court. I am excited to be here today for this interview, particularly because I was very pleased and honored to earn the endorsement of the Nevada Veterans Association in my previous campaign in 2020. And as a daughter of a veteran, I can't think of better endorsements than from our veterans community. Thank you.
My name is Terry Coffing. I'm running for Department 27. I've been an attorney in this town for 34 years. For the last 3 years, I've been chief legal officer for a cybersecurity company. But prior to that, I had a very diverse practice. I ran a large law firm as a managing partner with a full caseload, handling mainly civil and real estate related litigation. But prior to that, as a younger attorney, I handled a great deal of criminal matters. I was appointed to several post-conviction relief petitions in federal court and state court, and I also tried 2 felony jury trials to conclusions. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Erika Mendoza. I'm the current sitting judge in Department 27. I was appointed by Governor Lombardo earlier this year. Prior to my move to the bench, I was with the Clark County District Attorney's Office, where I was a career prosecutor. So I've been helping this community through that method ever since I got out of law school. I ended at the District Attorney's Office as team chief of the gun crimes unit. So I was supervising attorneys while handling my own caseload, where our case criteria was complex felony gun crimes. So most of our cases were multiple events, multiple defendants, shootings, robberies, things like that. Outside of work, I have a born and raised Las Vegan husband who is a local business owner, and we have 2 small boys.
Okay, I'll start with the questions. You'll get 1 minute to respond to the questions. I'm James Jonas. I'm the Director of Veterans in Politics, and this question is for all 3 of you. So I'm going to start with, and I'll start with you, Judge. You answer this first, and then we'll move to our left. Veterans in Politics International, specifically was spearheaded by Steve Sampson, president of Veterans in Politics, has proposed, and I'm on board with this as well, has proposed legislation that didn't get out of committee, unfortunately, or even get taken up by the committee in the legislature. But I want your take on what you think about this bill. It's remove or retain. So basically what will happen is if somebody is running unopposed, which obviously isn't the case in this situation. But if a judge is running unopposed, because one of the issues that we've ran into here in this city and state is that there's a lot of attorneys that are afraid to run against certain judges, so they don't file against them because they're afraid that that judge will then come after them if they lose and come back as an attorney and appear in front of them. So the way this legislation will work is that the voters will get an opportunity, even if you're the only one on the ballot, will get to say, we want to retain this individual as judge or we want to remove them. If remove gets more votes, then the governor will, then you'll go through the appointment process. What do you guys think about this legislation? Judge, we'll start with you.
So I'm sure that you've heard from other candidates in judicial races that we have limitations in terms of talking about policy positions. So this is kind of bordering on that. Obviously, as a judge, we can't advocate certain policy positions, and our main role is to follow the law as is written, which is always a priority for me. I will say, to the extent that there are deficiencies in having elected judges, I think it's always important to keep in mind how we can minimize the negatives of that process.
I may take a bit different stance than my colleagues. I'd be all for this proposal. In fact, I would go a step further. I don't think we should be electing judges at all. And if the only election should be a retention election, yes or no, do they stay? And if they don't stay, there should be an appointment process, and that person will sit for the next yes, up or down vote. I think the current system as we have it is somewhat flawed. It allows moneyed interests to have an undue influence on who may get the most attention and publicity. And so I would be in favor of this proposal, and I understand it did not make it out of the legislature this time, but I would support something similar and perhaps even more far-reaching. Thank you.
We have had previous ballot initiatives asking Nevadans whether they want to continue to have elections in the judicial context. And in the past, Nevadans have said that they do want to elect their judges. And because that is what the people have said, that they feel strongly about being able to elect their judges, I support that Nevadans continue want to elect their judges. Now, as lawyers, we have a different view of what happens inside the courthouse and, the judges you like to appear in front of and some judges that you don't. But we do have the recusal process so that, for example, in 2020, when I ran against an incumbent, we had a very civil discourse, and ultimately, when I wasn't successful, he recused himself off of my cases so there wouldn't be any conflict, there wouldn't be any impropriety or bias against me or my clients because of that, to allow the elector process to take its course.
Hi, Barbara with Veterans in Politics, and I just would like to know this is for all of you, what inspired you to go into law?
All right, I'm starting. I decided I was going to go to law school in 4th grade. We learned about checks and balances in the 3 branches of government, and I decided that I wanted to be able to serve my community and my country, and I decided I was going to do that in 4th grade. After that, my family actually moved overseas, and I had a lot of opportunity to see how justice systems work in other places, and that just made me recommit to wanting to work in the American system and preserve it, but also do what I can to better it from the inside.
Ever since I was a kid, all I wanted to be was a professional hockey player. But that was painfully obvious by the time I reached high school. It wasn't going to happen. But I always had a fascination with the law and a great love of the law, in the sense that it is hopefully the unbiased way that, as a society, that we can control and have a check on not only others but the process itself. So I've dedicated my life to the law. I always thought that my career in the law had 3 stages. I start as a student, learn it, start as a practitioner, practice it, see it how it applies, and then teach and perhaps be a judge at the same time, so you can give back some of that experience that you've gleaned over the years to others in a different format. I was very fortunate to get the endorsement from this body the last time around, and I'm hopeful that you'll see it that way again. Thank you.
So I too wanted to go to law school. I knew that from a young age, just because I enjoyed the analysis and the advocacy associated with it. But when I was in law school, I had an experience which really cemented my path as a prosecutor, which was my dad was actually killed in a reckless driving accident. And it went to trial, and the individual was convicted. But ultimately, the sentence wasn't, what we had hoped for, but what was unique in the experience was the care with which everyone at the district, it wasn't here, at the district attorney's office in the county we were in, treated us, and the way that the judge handled the whole process, in that these two families were completely shattered. And the way everyone handled us was so beneficial to just making some of the worst days of both families' lives a little bit easier. And I saw the impact those people could have even when the outcome wasn't great. And I wanted to be a part of that in the future.
Patsy Brown, President of Armed Forces Chamber PAC. My question is for all of you. Judges sometimes encounter cases where existing statutes or precedents do not sufficiently address the legal issues at hand. In such instances, judicial decisions play a crucial role in filling the gaps in the law. If elected, how would you approach a similar case to establish new case law?
So, as judges, we have to follow the law. And there certainly are situations where there's kind of these deficiencies or holes in the law. So what I would plan to do, and what I have done in those situations, is I am bound by the law that it exists. But when I encounter those situations, is I make a very detailed record of how I arrived at this decision and kind of the issues that were swaying me one way or the other, and I will point out in the record, I am kind of confused about how this came out because there's this hole in the wall, and then hopefully point that out so a reviewing court will see how we're having trouble applying something and hopefully can clarify it for us in the future.
Unfortunately, with a legislature that meets only once every 2 years, or maybe that's a good thing, depending on how you perceive that, we do have problems where the law is not clear when it is applied to the facts that are before the judge. And in that situation, I would also echo my colleague that we need to make detailed findings as to why we come out. But in the end, I like to think that I'm a pragmatic person, and that a pragmatic solution should always be the solution over an interpretation or supplementation of the law that leads to an absurd or completely unfair result for all.
I certainly echo the comments of my colleagues with regard to establishing a good record in case there is an appeal. There isn't always an appeal, and I interpret your question to be a lot about issues of first impression. I've had the opportunity 2 or 3 times in my career to argue issues of first impression before the district court. And an important part of that is to make sure that you research as thoroughly as possible, because while we have some unanswered questions in Nevada, other courts have examined those questions, and you can look at their reasoning, which may not be it might not be required that we follow the law of the other state, but it certainly can be persuasive and convince us about how to work through an issue. As judge, the job is not to be an advocate either way, but to rely on the litigants to do that briefing and sometimes advise them, hey, we need supplemental briefing. I need you to go back. I need you to research this. I need you to look for this. And then work hand in hand with the staff in chambers, especially the law clerk, to make sure that that research is done and the judge can make as an informed decision as possible under the circumstances.
Andre Haynes, Armed Forces Chamber PAC. This question is for all three of you. Tell me about a case or type of case in your experience that best prepares you to be judge and continue being a judge.
I think the inception of my desire to seek judicial office happened when I tried a case in front of a judge who was later removed from office. And I got to see firsthand about how a good judge or a bad judge really influences the case. And while you get the verdict from the community, from representatives on the jury, the judge gives you your trial. The judge establishes the playing field to make sure, or under ideal circumstances, to make sure that the playing field is even, so the litigants can present their case and feel satisfied, whether they win or lose, that they've had a fair day in court. And that is where I began to think about moving eventually, this was years ago, but moving from being an attorney toward seeking judicial office one day.
I would say from the case perspective, the case that impacted me greatly was Thitchner versus Countrywide. It is still the seminal case on punitive damages in the state of Nevada. My clients were the Thitchners, both active duty Air Force when they came to me. Mr. Thitchner was recalled in Desert Shield, and his family was split. He was down in Arizona, stationed there temporarily for what was supposed to be 6 months, ended up being 8 months, and the family was split. And they decided that they wanted to be together, but they kept their condominium here. And a real estate agent came in thinking that the property had been foreclosed on and threw away all their personal possessions. We developed some great testimony, specifically Mr. Thitchner's uniform and medals were unceremoniously placed in a dumpster. And after the banks dug in their heels, we were able to establish new law relating to the interpretation of punitive damages and special damages as it relates to personal effects. That case still has a great impact on my life.
Thank you. So I mentioned I finished at the DA's office as the team chief of the gun crimes unit, and that the cases we handled there were particularly unique in setting me up for success as a judge, in that they were all complex, involving multiple events and multiple defendants. So in order to prepare a case like that for trial, for example, I did one a couple years ago that lasted a month with 50-something witnesses. That was 7 separate robberies over the course of 3 nights, multiple locations, where they would put a car at one location on the strip, or steal a car at one location on the strip, then drive to another location, another parking garage, rob some people, then drive to another location and abandon the car and flee the scene. So for every one of those events, we had multiple scenes we had to bring testimony from, video, forensic evidence. So being able to easily organize that information into a workable formula to present at trial taught me how to multitask and make these decisions very quickly, which is imperative as a judge.
Good morning, Joaquin Perry Edwards, Armed Forces Chamber PAC. This question is for candidate Mr. Coffing. Have you ever been inside of a prison facility? What were the circumstances and how did it affect you?
I believe that I've been inside every prison, major high security prison in the state. The circumstances were I had been appointed to cases by various judges, and due to conflicts within the DA's office, or the PD's office actually. And so I've been in every one of them, including the infamous dungeon up in Carson City before they closed that. The circumstances, I've also been there in a civil context. I had a lawsuit against I'm not gonna call him a gentleman, a man who had killed his mother, and she had a sizable estate. And I went up there to interview him and ultimately settle the case by getting him to execute deeds for the property that he stole back to the rest of the family members. So I've been there as a practitioner in both the criminal and civil side. Sometimes not pleasant experiences. I did have to file an affidavit of no merit on a homicide case that I was appointed to on a post-conviction relief basis. But I do have that experience, and as I said previously, I've tried 2 felony jury trials to conclusion. Thank you.
How you guys doing? My name is Frank Friends. I'm a family court observer with Veterans in Politics. So they say that if you want to know the morality and justice of a law, just apply it. And society will tell you if it's just law or not. But lately you hear all these judges talking about, well, the skin color of somebody matters, their background matters, their sex matters. Well, if you're not worried about any of that and you're just applying the law across the board, we'll know if it's just or not because society will speak to you guys and tell you that. Are you going to let people, the cases that come across you, race, sex, religion, or background affect your decisions and how you will execute given written laws as they are now?
Thank you for the question. I think an important part of measuring someone's judicial temperament is their ability to put aside any personal biases, previous information, and treat everyone as equal under the law. I believe that there is institutional and systematic problems with racism and sexism, et cetera, in the system. But I would strive to make my courtroom a safe place for all litigants so that they would know that they would get a fair shot when they come before the bench.
Race, sex, religion, no, that would definitely get no favor for me. I do think that background can be important in the terms of context. I was the law clerk for Judge Lehman, who started the first drug court, and that proved to be very successful in helping prevent recidivism. I think the Veterans Court that is currently in place also does a great job in taking in unique circumstances that veterans may face as a result of their service and the help that they may need, especially that can't always be focused on punishment. And so in those limited circumstances, I would take background into consideration.
Thank you. No one will ever be treated differently based on their race, sex, religion in my courtroom for any reason, whether it's treated better or worse. I think what Mr. Coffing points out in terms of someone's background is important when it comes to discretionary decisions like a sentencing, but I absolutely would take issue with the insinuation that someone's background must be of a certain type because of their sex or race. Now, if someone has unique circumstances in their life, not their sex or their race or anything like that, that leads them to problems in their life, whether it's, mental health issues or drug issues that need to be fixed, I would take that into account in figuring out, is there a program that can help this person without putting the community in danger? But I'm never making those decisions based on their sex or race or religion.
James Jonas, Director of Veterans in Politics. This question's for all three of you. Whether you believe that judges should be elected or not, or just appointed and then retained, the current law is to be for judges to be elected. So here's some statistics. In non-presidential election cycles, we have here in Clark County approximately a 2.5% turnout for judicial races. So this means that's about 2.5%. Well, even if they go in and start voting, they'll just skip judges. In presidential election cycles, it's 4.25%. So my question is, if elected to the bench, what will you do to for community outreach to try to get people to take judicial races more seriously? We'll start with the judge first.
So whenever I talk to people about this issue, I always try and point out that it might be not the most, publicized race, but the races at the bottom of the ballot, the judges, those local elected officials are the ones that are most likely to make the biggest difference in your life. So I always encourage people to really do their research and try and find out what they can about those candidates. And if they can't find what they need, to contact their local contact information to find out more about those people so they can make the informed decisions. Specific to judicial races, I would always encourage people to come and see what you can see of a judge when they're on the bench. You can see a lot just from observing someone's calendar. So I would welcome, it's a unique situation because the only people in our community who know the most, know everything about how a judge is going to do their job is those in the legal community. So, because they're there every day. So I encourage people to come see what they can see at the courthouse. And also if they know anyone in the legal community to reach out to those people and get their input.
Thank you. As a practitioner several years ago, I was very frustrated with the quality of candidates that we were getting to sit on the bench. Some of them, in my opinion, were not qualified. And so I started, fully funded on my own, a project called Adjudicate, in which we interviewed candidates for election. We judicial office. We posted their bios. We did not make endorsements per se, but we did whatever we could to, number one, get these judges on camera, FaceTime with them, get their opinions, their personalities known, and then get that out to the public. As a judge, I would continue that process by encouraging speaking events and things of that nature. And I'd also reach out through the bar, because I think the bar can be very instrumental in doing that. I currently sit on the Board of Governors for the state bar, and I've always encouraged the judges that we encounter, we meet with the Supreme Court on a regular basis, to get out and make themselves known. So that's not just checking the first box or checking the box that sounds nice. It's, I know something about that judge and I want to vote for them because they deserve it.
I think maybe our greatest strength as well as our greatest weakness of democracy is that it depends on the electorate and the responsibility of the electorate to try to educate themselves so they can make informed choices. And campaigning is mostly about community outreach. The thing about campaigning is it often stops after the election. And so we would hope for public servants that would continue to reach out to the community during their service and go to schools. And one of my favorite things to do is go to schools during career day. There's an episode of SpongeBob. It's called SpongeBob Lawyer Pants. We talk about not just the judge and the lawyers, but all of the different roles, the stenographer, the marshals, all of the different people that make the system work. To be able to do that and to volunteer in the community so that you are seen not just as someone wearing a robe on a bench far away, and to be able to relate to people. My favorite thing about campaigning, although it was cut short a little bit in 2020 because we couldn't shake hands or kiss babies, is meeting new people and getting to talk to them about why I love what I do.
Frank Friends, Family Court Observer. So you talked about you do a lot of gun cases, and the problem with these crimes with gun cases is the most law-abiding group in America is CCW holders. They commit less crimes than off-duty police officers. But you have criminals who get a hold of these firearms illegally. Then you have judges who, instead of giving the sentence that should be given, decide to take background, race, sex, and religion into consideration and lessen sentences, which causes higher recidivism rates for higher violence to repeat offenders. What would you do if cases came across your desk and the minimum sentence is 5 years? Are you going to try and lessen that, or are you going to be like, this is the court, this is the law, and I don't legislate from the bench?
Again, the judicial canons keep us from being able to take a position on cases before they appear in front of us, precisely because we don't want to be disqualified when those cases do come. But I can tell you I'm committed to following the law and enforcing the law as written and not legislating from the bench.
I wholeheartedly agree with you that CCW holders, the training that they're required to receive is some of the best education we can provide. I was a CCW holder when we were a May issue state, when I worked for the judge, and I currently own several guns. I do not carry as often as I used to. But when it comes to case coming before me, I think gun crimes can be serious crimes. And if someone commits a crime commits a crime with a gun that was not obtained legally or they had a right to own by virtue of their prior convictions, then I would be certainly more tend to lean towards the harsher sentence.
So for, again, I already told you that race and race and sex will never play a role in my decision making, and we are limited in terms of what the statutory punishment is. I will say possession of a firearm by a prohibited person carries a potential range of 1 to 6. So the lowest end you would have there is 12 to 30 months. The highest end would be 24 to 60 months. So we have to go somewhere within that range. I certainly understand the frustration from legal gun owners on this topic. I also am a CCW owner or CCW holder, and my husband spent a lot of time shooting and is also a CCW holder. So I understand the frustration with people in those communities, and I am always taking that into account.
Okay, I have one last question. I think, so I pronounce your name Alexandra? Okay. All right. So Alexandra brought up a really good point. So I'm going to ask my question to all three of you regarding, yes, we all know that, well, let's be honest, the electorate, okay, does not have, we're not all attorneys. I'm not an attorney, so there's a lot of things about the law I don't understand. But the electorate is the one that elects the legislature. So the legislature writes the laws that you guys have to follow in the courtroom. So my question is, if elected, will you be engaged with your legislative liaison at you and your peers so that you guys can discuss some of the current NRS statutes and where you think they're not jiving with what they should be, as far as not giving you guys either enough authority, because we have so much minimum and maximum statutes here with the NRS codes? Would you guys be active with the legislative liaison to address those issues while still, if the following the current NRS statute? I guess I'll start with you, Judge.
I have to correct myself. I said 1 to 6, and then I said 24 to 60. 1 to 6, 28 to 72. In terms, obviously, as we said again, we have to follow the law as it's written. However, I do think it's important for the judges to be in constant communication where permitted with the legislature to point out, this is where we're having problems, this is where there are holes. So to the extent that there are committees and groups that can help those two entities come together and point out the deficiencies and where we need further help, I would love to be a part of that. One of the reasons why I wanted to do this was because we have recently lost a lot of senior judges who provided a lot of leadership for the courts, and I wanted to be part of a new group that can come in and form a new leadership role who does things like that to ensure the future of our courts and our legal system is headed in the right direction.
To the extent allowed under the judicial canons, I would certainly be as involved as possible in helping fix, as my colleague referred to, the holes in the law, where they're just so glaring examples that can be easily fixed or could be resolved with simple legislation. Having professionally worked with the legislature trying to pass security legislation in the last term, I think the old adage about the two things you don't want to see being made are laws and sausage hold true. And there's a lot of political groups out there that want to influence the law the way they had. So it's a fine line to walk. But I think reaching out to where I can with specific examples of where the judiciary is having issues in the current statutory scheme, I think that's entirely appropriate as long as it's not case specific. And I would do my best to assist in that level.
The short answer to your question is yes, I will be involved. I would like to be involved. I have already been involved as part of my service as an attorney. I head up the bench bar committee with Judge Gloria Sturman. She's the bench portion of the committee, and myself and my colleagues are the bar portion of the committee. And part of what we do in that role is to educate the bar when there are changes and upcoming legislative initiatives, and make sure that the bar is aware when testimony will be entertained by the legislature so that they can get in and provide their expertise and their experience dealing with holes in the law or just potential that they see to fix a problem or a need that needs to be addressed, and as well as to modify and amend the rules of court to make sure that we are keeping up with technology and other needs of both the litigants, the attorneys, and the bench.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I'll go ahead and we'll have each candidate will get 45 seconds to give a closing statement. Please, in your closing statement, why you're the best for this position, and then also make sure you look in the camera and give your point of contact, campaign information, so you can get the viewers and listeners out there to maybe help you guys with your campaign. We'll go ahead and start with the judge and go this way. You guys will get 45 seconds each.
Thank you. I would say my biggest asset as the judge is that I have courtroom experience, not just legal experience. As a DA, you are in the courtroom from day one, almost every single day. We're doing preliminary hearings, grand jury presentations, trials. I've done approximately over 30 felony jury trials. And having the actual courtroom experience is very different than just legal experience generally, because you learn how to make those decisions quickly, efficiently, and accurately. And if you can't do that, if you're not used to that as the judge, you're going to have a lot of problems on appeal and moving cases quickly and efficiently, which is my main goal. My mantra for my department is consistency and efficiency while protecting the community and safeguarding everyone's rights. So my website is judgeerikamendoza.com, and I greatly appreciate the opportunity to be here and thank everyone for your support.
Thank you. I believe that in this race, I'm the only candidate that has both civil and criminal litigation experience. As I mentioned, I've tried felony jury trials on behalf of defendants. I have extensive civil litigation and lots of jury trials. I've provided you a list of cases that have been reported in the state and federal level. I've argued at every level, the state Supreme Court, the appellate court, and the Ninth Circuit on various matters. I've also have judicial experience. I was a justice of the peace pro tem for many years, and I spent 7 years as a tribal judge for a federally recognized tribe. In doing that, I handled civil matters, criminal matters. I was able to sign warrants for federal agencies, and I had experience with the Indian Child Welfare Act and custody matters. So I believe that my experience in this race is unique, and that makes me best qualified. My name is Terry Coffing. I can be reached at tcoffing@gmail.com, and I'll soon have a website up, but I couldn't announce it today. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for your time today, for your invitation to be here, and for your thoughtful questions. I believe that I am the best candidate for Department 27 because I can fill a need that's there. In my role working with the bench bar committee, the judges have told us, what they need, and they need practitioners that have thorough civil experience, boots on the ground trial experience with complex civil matters that can handle those cases. But more so than that, I have trained to be able to transition in that role as serving our legal community as an arbitrator for many years, as well as a short trial judge. So I know that I can make those decisions in that context. I am excited and remain passionate about the practice of law and would like to transition my trial experience to experience on the bench. I hope everyone will follow the crowd and vote for McLeod, just like the street is how it's spelled. And you can reach me both on Facebook and online at votemcleod.com.
Okay, at this time, I just want to thank all three of you for coming out and participating in our joint veteran endorsement interviews. I know it's very difficult to answer questions in front of a panel, and especially running for judge, because you do have to follow judicial canons, and sometimes that kind of hamstrings you on what you can and cannot respond to. With that being said, I also want to give a special thank you to our sponsors, Shelley Berkeley, who's running for Las Vegas mayor, Carrie Maxey, who's running for Family Court Department N, and also Monica Larson, who is running for Henderson City Council Ward 2. With that will conclude our endorsement interview for Clark County District Court Judge Department 27.